All right, up to 13.2 here, dealing with ranges, variation, and standard deviation of a data set. So, again, I'm going to show you the formulas to find these things by hand, but then I'm going to show you how to easily find these things on your calculator. I don't need you to go through these complex formulas to find these values. This is what we have calculators for. This is why we have a decent calculator that allows us to not have to go through these kind of calculations to find simple values associated with data sets. All right, so in 13.1, we talked about means, medians, and modes. Those are measures of central tendency, where a data set, what is the middle of a data set? That's what we use to find some sort of measure of what the center of a data set is. These values, ranges, variations, and standard deviations, have to do with how spread out a data set is. The larger the variance and standard deviation, the more spread out the values are in a data set. So I'm going to look at number 8 here. And number 8, we have a data set given to us, okay, 11 values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 values in this data set. We want to find the range, the variance, and the standard deviation. The range is the simplest one. The range is just the maximum value minus the minimum value, the actual spread of the data. So we'll do that first. We look at the data set, and usually, it's pretty obvious what the largest and the smallest values are. If it's a large data set, you can't look through each individual value. You can put it into your calculator, put it in ascending order or descending order, and then it will be extremely easy to find the minimums and maximums, or you can use the one variable stats, which we have been, and that will also give it to you. But if you're just looking at 11 values, it's pretty easy to see the minimum value is 49 in this data set, and the maximum value is 96. So we take the difference between those two values, and we come up with the range. And that's all you got to do to find the range. All right, now a little bit more involved is the variance in the standard deviation. The variance is this formula where we're going to take each individual value in the data set. We're going to subtract the mean of that data set. So we have to come up with the mean of that data set. Remember, we did that in 13.1. Just add up all the values, divide by 11. You're going to get this number rounded to a tenth. So you need to find the mean. The mean was not given to us in this problem. We had to calculate the mean because we need it to find the variance. Once we have the mean, now we have everything we need to plug into this formula. We're going to take each value, we're going to subtract the mean from it and square it, and we're going to add all those together, and then we're going to divide by n minus 1. Our n is 11. All right, so we look at that. And again, this is why I'm not going to make you do this every time you need to find a variance. This is why you need a good calculator. But it's possible to do, right? We take the first value, we subtract the mean, we square it. And we add to that the second value minus the mean squared. And then we add to that the third value minus the mean squared. And we do that for all 11 values, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 values. We take each value, we subtract the mean and square it. We add those all together, and then we divide by n minus 1, in this case, 10. So when you add all these numbers together, add all these products together, these squares, right? We have this number, we're adding it to this number, we're adding it to this number. When you do that, and then divide by 10, you're going to come up with an answer of 284.48. Right? That's the variance. The standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. So once you have the variance, all you're going to do is take the square root of that number, and that's going to give you the standard deviation. All right? So ranges, variation, and standard deviation, all measures of how spread out a data set is. To find the variance by hand, you need to calculate the mean first and then go through this formula like we did here. Calculate those numbers, add all these up to get the numerator. The numerator here is the sum of all those differences squared. And then you're dividing by n minus 1 to get your variance. Take the square root of that. That's going to give you your standard deviation. Now again, let me show you how simple this is on your calculator. All right, so here's our handy dandy calculator again. And we need to put these numbers into a list, right? So let's go to Stat menu, Edit, and our lists. And we'll clear this. If you want to clear a list, remember you go up to the top, highlight the list, and hit Clear. And then when you hit the arrow button down, that list will be cleared. So let's put these values in. 93, enter. 67, 49, 55, 92, 87, 77, 66, 73, 96, and finally 54. All right, give your list a double check because putting a number in wrong really sucks, messes up your numbers and makes you go back and do extra work. But let's see, boom, 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 we got all the numbers in there correctly. Okay, and there's 11 values, right? The next value would be the 12th. So now back to Stat, over to Calculate, down to one variable stats, make sure the correct list is being entered, and frequency list doesn't matter. We go to Calculate and we hit Enter. And there we see our mean was correct, right? I calculated that mean earlier, but if you have to, you go and get your mean, 73.5. Now we're going to use this number for the standard deviation when you were looking up standard deviation in this format. This one is an approximation to the population standard deviation. Notice these numbers are close, but the S stands for sample standard deviation. You're going to use this one, right? And notice that is the number that we came up with, 16.87. Now here you're not given the variance, but you're given the standard deviation. So we know this number squared is going to be the variance, just like the square root of the variance is the standard deviation. All right, so if you square this number, 16.86, 16.86, if we square that number, we'll see we come very close to the number we got for the variance. I mean, we're rounding a little bit. If we go to 16.87, what I got, 16.7 squared, we're going to get even closer to the number that we had on the board. Okay, but I mean, a couple of decimal places isn't going to matter too much here as long as you do the work correctly. All right, so Stat, calculate, one variable stats, put in the correct list, and you got everything you need, your mean, your standard deviation. The range is not given, but the minimum and maximum are given. Right? Minimum is 49, maximum was 96. That's how we found the range, right? Just the difference between the minimum and maximum values. So you want to be able to, given a data set, you want to be able to find the range. You want to be able to find the standard deviation and variance. Remember, the variance has this formula. You can calculate it by hand and get the variance, and then take the square root to get the standard deviation. I'm going to be perfectly fine if you just put the list in your calculator, find the range using the minimum and maximum values. The standard deviation will be given to you in your one variable stats, and then you're just going to square this number to get the variance. All right, so ranges, variations, and standard deviations, 13.2.